We're on Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis, and we started the Gemara here of Rav Oshia. So actually today, at least for the first part of our discussion today, we're going to be focused on Rav Oshia. And as we saw yesterday, Rav Oshia sets up interprets the machlokes between Chachamim and Rav Shimon in our Mishnah as a very extreme machlokes, meaning that Chachamim go to one polar extreme and Rabbi Shimon to the other. And we're talking about a case where Ruvain and Shimon are brothers, and Ruvain dies, and his wife falls for Yibum to Shimon, and Levi is born. Now Shimon has another wife. I think we called her Rivka. And we said that Ruvain's wife's name was Sarah, based on the Masechet here. Now, according to the Chachamim, we have, quickly reading the Mishnah, Shnei Achim Umeis Echamem V'Yibem Hasheni Es Eishes Achiv Achak Nolad Lahem Ach. Umeis, Shimon dies after Levi is born. It's Harishona Yotza Mishumeshes Ach Shlohoye Bolama Vashmina Mishum Tzoros. So the Chachamim hold that there's no possibility of Yimonefshem. As far as Sarah is concerned, she's an Erev of Eishes Ach because of Lo Haybolama, meaning that Levi and Ruvain did not overlap at all. And as far as Rivka is concerned, she's a Sarah's Erev. Then we have Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon holds that Miyavim Leizu Shiyirtzel Cholik Seisvich, that there will be an Afila for Yibum to Levi, and the status of Sarah is not that of an Erva. On the contrary, there will be Yibum. So comes over Rabbi Yoshia, and as we said before, he separates these two shittas from one polar extreme to the other. What does that mean? That means, according to Chachamim, even if it was Yibem Ulavasof Nolad, meaning even if Shimon's Yibum took place before Levi was born, so by the time Levi was born, Sarah Eishes Ruvain was already the wife of Shimon. Even in that case, there's no Yibum, neither to Sarah nor to Rivka, because Sarah is an Eishes Ach. And the big chiddush, as we pointed out, is that when Levi was born, Shimon had already changed the facts on the ground. He was already married to Sarah Eishes Ruvain because he was already miyavim her. And therefore, we would have said in that case, certainly the original issues to Ruvain is history. It's no longer relevant. Now, Sarah is Eishes Shimon. Shimon dies. She should fall for Yibum. And no, the Chachamim say that she remains an Erev. And basically what that means is that the moment that Levi comes into the world, this woman is treated or classified as not only Eishes Shimon, because again, the Yibum had already taken place, but she's also Eishes Ruvain. There's no contradiction. Now we get to Rav Oshi's interpretation of Rav Shimon, which is the other polar extreme. And that means that even in a case where Nolad the Acharkach Yibum, and Levi was born before Shimon consummated Yibum with Eishes Ruvain, which means clearly that at the moment that Levi was born, the status or the relationship, we should say, between Sarah, Ashes, Reuven, and Levi is that of Ashes, Akshaloy, which is an erva. Nevertheless, since Reuven consummated Yibum, that removes the status of Ashes Ach, and we have a brand new situation. And we pointed out that that's a pellet. That's really mind-boggling, because how can you tell me that on the one hand you call Sarah Ashes Ach Mizvi Levi, which is an erva, and then all of a sudden that status of erva dissipates into the air the moment that Shimon is miyavim Sarah. Okay. Oh, so now the Gemara points out that there are two parts to the Mishnah, a Reish and a Seifa, and each part of the Mishnah is coming to tell you how far that particular Shita, the Tana, would go. So again, there are two parts of the Mishnah. In both parts, there's going to be a machlokes between the Tanakama and Reb Shimon. And in one part of the Mishnah, we're going to tell you how far the Tanakama went in his Shita to consider an erva in the Tzara, Rivka's Tzara's erva, and how far, and the next part of the Mishnah, how far Reb Shimon would go in saying Rotza Miyavi Mizu, Rotza Choli Tzu, and there's no erva Veishis Ah. So that's called in the Gemara's language, which is where we stopped yesterday, Tana Reisha, Lo Diacha Kocha Reb Shimon. So the Reisha is the case where Levi was born and Yibum had not yet taken place. And from Desveg, and even in that case, Rabbi Shimon holds that there is Yibum. And Tana Seifa, which is the case where the Yibum took place before Levi was born, Lo Diacha Kocha Rabbanan, that even in this case where the Metzias, the facts on the ground when Levi was born, was that of an Eish Shimon, Shimon had already implemented Yibum, nevertheless, the status of Sarah is that of an Erev Veishis Ach, and therefore Rivka is in Sarah's Erev. So now the Gemara asks the following question. Ella Eishes Achiv Shelo Hayim. Let's see, do we have the place? Let's just sure. We're talking, you see Tosus Dira Maskell Mishkachas. So it's a little bit above that, about 3 lines or so above that, and the line starts with the word Elo. I guess from the bottom it would be about 15 lines up from the bottom, if that makes sense. Elo. The Gemara asks, Elo, Eishes Achiv Shelo Hayim V'Olam Rabbi Shimon Heichi Mishkachas. So what is the case of Eish? We derive from the pasuk Ki Yesh Rachim Yachdav to exclude a case of Achiv Shelo Hayim V'Olam. I mean, here we see that even when Levi is born and he's Lo Hayim V'Olam, we're still removing, the erva because of Shimon's Yibum. So the Gemara answer is very simply, Bechad Acha. So we're talking about a case where there's only one brother at this point. And he gets married, we'll call him Reuven, he marries Sarah, who misbelow, he dies without children, and Vinolad Lo Ach, now Shimon is born. So in this case, everybody agrees that Sarah, the wife of Reuven, is an heir to Shimon, who was just born after the death of Reuven. Why? Because, again, I had trouble here with a few words in the Masechet, but anyway, without the Masechet, I think we do better here in this case. Is because since there's no Yibum, there's no Nefila for Yibum, Therefore, the status of Sarah vis-a-vis Shimon is that of an Ashes Ah. So just to summarize where we're holding right now in the sugya, Rabbi Shimon understands that the erev of Ashes Ah Shalahoy B'Olam applies when there's only one brother, one son of Yaakov, let's Yaakov Avinu, and the other brother is born after the death of that one single son. Once we get to a case where there are two achim, and then a third ach was born, that's where Reb Shimon holds that there's no erva of Ashes Achim Shloim Olamo. But again, you have to add the proviso that the second ach is miyavim the wife of the first ach. Inami. Now the Gemara has a different answer. Betray. Even in a case where there are two brothers, Rabbi Shimon would agree that is an erev of eight. Because again, we said that the proviso of Rabbi Shimon is that the second brother, we'll call him Shimon, in the case of three brothers from Rich and Levi, was miyavim Sarah Ashes Reuben. Let's say he wasn't miyavim. Inami, betray. So there were two brothers, Reuben and Shimon. And Levi was born after the death of Reuven. And what did Shimon do? Velo Yibin. Shimon was not miyavim the wife of Reuven, Sarah. Velo mis. In other words, Shimon is still alive and well, but he's not fulfilling Yibum. It's a very odd situation here because the two conditions here, A, that Shimon refuses, I'm just using borrowing a dramatic term. Shimon is adamant that he won't be biyah, but Shimon still remains alive. That's going to hold on to the erev of Ashes Ach, vis-a-vis between Sarah and Levi. But the very moment that Shimon dies, just one second. See, I think it works like this. Maybe that'll help me. I just realized that to go back to that. I'm going to go back to that phrase that bothers me. What happens is that as long as Shimon is still alive and he hasn't married Sarah, so the Ishus of Reuven now continues to exist. Such that now Sarah, the wife of Reuven, is an Ashes Ah, right? Because vis-a-vis Levi, there's no mitzvah Yibum. The Zika still is alive and well, it's active because Shimon is now in a passive position. If Shimon dies, then as far as Sarah is concerned, she's not Skuka. And if there's no Zika, then she's not considered Ashes Reuben. Phenomenal breakthrough, but I did. And on the other hand, if Shimon is miyavim Sarah, then Sarah is not Ashes Reuben because we have a new marriage to replace the old marriage. She's Ashes Shimon and not Ashes Reuben. So just one second. Dies. Yeah, we have to add one point. I mean, this is obvious, but I think it should be said. The moment that Shimon dies, there's no nefila for Yibum, meaning Sarah doesn't fall for Yibum to Levi, because Levi is Lahoy B'Olam. Just one second, that's impossible. No, it's Kiesh. I mean, Levi was born after the death of Reuben. Oh, but Shimon wasn't miyavim. So I'm just saying, if Shimon is not miyavim and he dies, what's the status of Sarah vis-a-vis Levi? One second. So then, let me get this straight. She was miyavim. Could it be that according to Rabbi Shimon, Levi's allowed? It's like, that can't be.
This whole
He could marry Sarah. Again, there was no yibum between Shimon and Sarah. Now Shimon dies. I mean, so what was the language of Rav Shimon? I'm sorry, I got myself a little tongue-tied here. you gentlemen know that happens from time to time. It's not a shock. Yet what did Rav Shimon say? The Yabim le'ezim and sheyir. So choletz ezim and sheyir. Let's just understand. That's a case. No, that's a case where Shimon was miyabim. Right, Shimon was miyabim. I want to know if Shimon dies without yibum. Just 1 second. Let me just see. He says Tzir Kuf Nun. I doubt if this is going to help us, but let's just see it. Reuven is Shimon Achman, also Reuven is Sarah. Meis Reuven B'Lovanim, Nafal Sarah Shimon. The Yibum V'Akach Nolad Lahem. Oh, so let's see if we can. I don't know. This for me was a major mistake. This blackened thing. Anyway, I don't know how this got such a terrible mistake. He says, Harei Sarah. Image you should be able to read.
so small.
I guess just because you're an eye doctor doesn't necessarily mean that you have better eyes than anybody else. Harei Sarah, what? Yeah, right. You told me. Me too. Harei Sarah Asur Levi B'chai Shimon. See that? Again, he sounds like he's implying that the whole Isa between Sarah and Levi is only B'chai Shimon. Mm-hmm. Let's see how he develops them. He says, Gam l'Rav Oshel, the Rav Shimon. I don't know what he means by that, but anyway, Shemitzad Nis, what is it? Nisuas, yeah, Nisueha, it should be. Nisueha l'Ruven, Ein Zekukalo, Shrei Lohoi Bolomo, Umitzad Zikos l'Shimon, Ein Zekukalo, Shrei Shimon, what is Shimon Lo Mes? 1 second, I lost end here. 1 second. So now what happens over here? Mitzad Zikosa the Shimon Enos Kuklo. Sorry, Shimon. Oh, in other words, her Zika is to Shimon. Aval in Meis Shimon below Bon. Teres Levi. Below Bon. Machshiva Saki Knus Shimon. Whoa. Okay. It's a whole new thing. It's amazing to me that he tells you to look at this diagram. I mean, it's really premature. I mean, the Gemara is going to be machadish later on. I'll just give you a preview of coming attractions that according to Rav Shimon's Kuka Kiknusa Dom. And he's already operating with this. We didn't even get to that principle. Well, let's just see how that works. Okay, since he's giving us a preview, we can work with it. So if Zika's Kiknusa Dom, then with the death of Shimon, Sarah falls to Yibum to Levi because of Achiv Shahayabo. And why? Because Shimon, in quotation marks, is married to Sarah. So let's just think about this. As long as Shimon is alive, second, so then you're at it. Shimon is alive. Is the status of Sarah now Ashes Ach was kukas. Not sure. Do you follow my question? If Levi would have a relationship with Sarah during the lifetime of Shimon, would he be chayiv kares because veishasach shlo lamo, or would he be chayiv for what we call Yevamot ashur? In other words, a violation of a shomeres yavam, which is only a lot, not kares.
In the note in Art Scroll says, Rabbi Shimon holds the Zika bond between the Yavam, the Yavam makes her considered like his full-fledged wife, even under the.
Good. So that's not the Zika that we spoke about until now. Until now, we spoke about Yesh Zika as a Drabbana. Now we're shifting to Yesh Zika Doraisa and Rabbi Shimon. But again, I still don't know what is the status of Sarah in her relationship to Levi when Shimon is alive. Now it's true that it's certainly a Ashes Kukasa, which we call a Shomeres Yavam, but that's only an Isalah. I'm just wondering what happened to the erva of Ashes Ak. So let's assume that somehow the Zika to Shimon undermines and replaces the issues of Reuven, which means that now the relationship between Sarah and Levi cannot exceed beyond Shomeres Yavam.
I mean, if it doesn't for Shimon, then it still, as applies to Reuven, it's going to be Ashes Hak.
Meaning it can't be both, you saying?
Well, I'm saying if it's not strong enough, if it's not a strong enough bond with Shimon to be considered Ashes Hak, it would be at least considered Ashes Hak.
Oh, you think that Levi would be liable for Kares?
I would think so. I mean,
Because of Reuven.
Yeah, and if the Zika is so strong, then it would be Ashes Hak to Shimon. It's for one.
No, that already is only midin Zika. No, I'm not saying it's the Rabbanim. I agree it's the Raisa, but it's not a Chiv Kares.
This is just.
It's not a full-fledged marriage, and Shimon was not Yamin, so at this point. So again, we have three. How many stages do we have? We have stage number one, in which Shimon is alive, and he hasn't done anything. We have stage number two, where Shimon was Yamin. Stage number three, where Shimon dies. Let's see. Let's go through all three scenarios. According to Rav Shimon, if Shimon is in a passive situation, he's alive and well, and he hasn't done Yibum, so then we're not sure. We're not sure whether or not the issues of Reuven is still active, it still exists in the form. No. I don't want to say in the form of Zika. I want to say that this woman, Sarah, was married to Levi's brother. That's an error. So what are we going to say? That was changed when Reuven died, and she fell for Yibum to Shimon. I don't know. That's a point I just want to leave in abeyance, suspended in midair, and I want to clarify. At the end of the day, we're going to probably come to the conclusion that she's not an Erev of Ashes Achavume, but the Zika Keknusa makes her Ashes Shimon. So right now, status quo, Shimon is alive and well, he's done nothing. And for sure, there is no possibility of Levi having a relationship with Sarah at this moment in time. Again, whether or not it would be a Chiv Kares of Ashes of Reuven, or would it be an Isu Doraisa of Ashes Kaso, Shomeres Yavam, etc., I don't know. Now we go to stage number two. That's the simple, according to Shimon. And that is that Shimon was Miyamin Sarah, and then Shimon dies. In that case, she falls Yibum to Levi. And on the contrary, we have to rack our brains to figure out the Rabbana sheet. Why the Rabbanan in that case will say that the Yisur Eishesach is still Hal. But again, that's also not catastrophic because once an Eishesach, always an Eishesach. As far as Reuben, that Erva status is Begufa Shel Rachel, and you can't remove that status. Now we get to the third scenario. Shimon dies without being Yaveh Sarah. And what's the deal in that case? What is the deal in that case? If he wasn't Yaveh her, so we're saying, an amazing thing, if I'm not mistaken, that Zika Kiknusa Davi, and therefore she, Sarah, falls for Yibum to Levi because she was Ki'ilu married to Shimon. I think that's what he's saying over here. Let's again try to. I should have brought in my magnifying. He says the following: Sarah Asura Levi b'Chayish Shimon Gam Rabbi Yisrael Mishum Shemitzad Nisu El Ruvain Enos Kukalo. Fine, true. Umitzad Zikos Shimon Enos Kukalo. So this is a case where what? Where Shimon is alive and he hasn't done anything. Am I right? Sarah Asur Levi B'Chai Shimon. Because there's no yibum as far as Ashes is concerned. Because Mitzad Zikosal Shimon, if so Shimon is alive and well, so there can't be any mitzvah of yibum as long as Shimon is alive, and there's no yibum to S insofar as she's Ashes Rubei because it's Lohayim Allah. Aval in base Shimon. Based on if I'm not mistaken, these words Abel Beis Shimon, please check me out, means that Shimon did nothing. And he died. Muteres Levi. Now I'm not sure what the word Muteres Levi means. I think in this context it means Misyabemes. I would use that term if not correct. Bishum Shezikas Hayibu Machshiva Osa Kiknusa L'Shimon. V'chayeves l'Rabbi Oshia b'Yibu Machmas Shenechsheva Nisua L'Shimon. Wow, this is really wild. The quiz question in the middle of the night, I wake you up and I ask you, when would there be a mitzvah of yibum to a woman who is not married to your brother? That would be my quiz question. And that's his case, because Shimon was not Miyaveh Meishin Sarah. And you can't tell me the yibum is because Meishin Reuben, it's Levi, it's Lo. The answer is that Zika Kiknusa. So for all intents and purposes, it's as if Shimon was married to Sarah. It's wild. What? As long as he's alive, so there's no nefila for Yibum, neither from Ruvain nor from Shimon. Right? That's B'chai Shimon. Tzad Zika l'Shimon, Enes Kuglosha Shimon Lomes. That's a technicality. You'd have to commit murder in order to set up a mitzvah Yibum in this case. You see, I'm a Masechet Yevamot, richness. I mean, with so many incredible, wild combinations. To say that this woman falls for Yibum not from Reuven but from Shimon, and yet Shimon never married this woman. Why? And Zika Kiknusa. in the Gemara. O inami, betray, below Yibam below mace. That's cool. Wait a minute. That's cool. Is that what the Gemara is calling Yeshu Sachim Shaloi Bolama?
Well,
We're saying that the reason why it's also is because she's like married to Shimon. No? Shimon is alive and well. Right? Shimon is alive. He's not dead, so you can't talk about Yibum. And she fell the Yibum to Shimon. She's a kuka to Shimon and not to Levi. And Shimon is not consummated Yibum. So do you call it? It's a little bit tricky here. You calling it Eishes? That's what I asked you before. During the lifetime of Shimon, do you consider that Eishes Achim Shalohai Bolama? We read this footnote here, in the small black print, and we came to I think what might be a mistaken conclusion, that the problem here during Shimon's life is a problem of Eishes Kukasa, but it really might be Eishes Achim Shemes back to Reuven. I don't know. I mean, it's very confusing. Let's see what he says. He says, okay, we're missing one little practice. So Yibum because Shimon's alive. It's a minor issue, right? Okay, but that's not applicable because Levi is lo hayav olam. Okay, now what's this yud over here? It says Ramban pasuk shekol shelo yibam below mace ein hi kikusa. I don't get what's going on here. The Ramban is denying the whole business. What it becomes when he dies, it becomes kikusa. That's pretty weird. No? So you have yeah, but I don't think the Zika is Scottish dead. Oh, I mean, is that what he's saying? 1 second, I understand what he's saying. King close. Dies. Say it again, Mitch. At one point, I got excited about what you were saying, but now I lost. What happens when Shimon dies?
That while Shimon is alive, has this Zika, but that's very experienced. He's not active. Once he dies, treated as if he had been married to her. In terms of lady, what lady?
Right, that she fought even out to Levi through Shimon. During his lifetime.
In terms of Ruvain, as long as he was born after Ruvain, even after Ruvain died, she's always also then they have to switch the relationship of Sarah to Shimon. They only switch it to her after she dies. Because while she's alive, he has to make a decision.
You said a lot there. I'm trying to digest it all. 1 second. I'm trying to sift through all this material here. Now. I'm just going to start talking, and I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, but I have a good friend, Alan Dubin. I don't know if you know him, but when Rav Soloveitchik used to call on him, he would start answering the question before he knew even what the answer was going to be. But as he was speaking, he would work out the answer. I'm going to try to pull an Alan Dubin shtick, man. We start with Reuven marrying Sarah. That creates an erva relationship of Ashes Ab vis-a-vis any brothers. Let's call it Shimon, let's call it Levi, who was Lo Hayavola. What removes that erva is going to be what's called a nefila for Yibum. Just 1 second. Oh, so now, as far as Shimon is concerned, Shahayavola is a nefila for Yibum. And that nefila for Yibum will remove the Ashes Ab. As far as Levi is concerned, there's no nefila for Yibum. It's interesting. You'd have two brothers, but our status as far as nefila for Yibum splits, it bifurcates. Vis-a-vis Shimon, there's a nefila for Yibum, and that's going to remove the Yisra Ashes Ach. It's going to be replaced by a mitzvah of Yibum. Vis-a-vis Levi, there's no mitzvah of Yibum, there's no nefila for Yibum, and therefore there's nothing to remove the Yisra Ashes Ach. So if that be the case, what we're saying is that as long as Shimon is alive, Sarah is an Ashes Ach vis-a-vis Levi because Mimarashav is known to feel the evil. The only reason she's not an erva to Shimon is because vis-a-vis Shimon is in a field of the evil, but as far as Levi, there is no field of the evil, so there's nothing to remove the erva of Ashes Ach. So getting back to my question of 10 minutes ago, what would happen if Levi would have a relationship with Sarah during the lifetime of Shimon? I think the answer would be Chayav Kares, which 5 minutes ago I was inclined to think not. But Mitch set me straight. Let's just see, is that what he's, I just want to go back for the third time to this footnote. He says, right, B'chai Shimon, Sarah Surah Levi, Yishub Shemtad, Nesu L'Ruvein, Suel L'Ruvein, Ein Zekukalo, meaning there's, he calls it Ein Zekukalo, I would call it there's no Nefila for Yibum. Umitzad Zikasal L'Shimon, so that also can't create a Nefila for you because Baruch Hashem Shimon is still alive and well. Umitzad Zikasal L'Shimon, Ein Zekukalo. I don't know if he's saying what I'm saying. I'm adding a little bit to what he's saying, or maybe he would even object to what I'm saying, that the original erva relationship of Ashes Ach with regard to Sarah, insofar as she was married to Reuven, is not removed until there's an Nefila for Yibum. There may be an Nefila for Yibum to X, but not to Y, to Shimon and not to Levi. But as far as Levi is concerned, the original erva of Ashes Ach that was generated by Reuven's marriage to Sarah is still very much alive and well because there was no Nefila for Yibum to remove that Ashes. So the svara that we were throwing out before, that the reason why during Shimon's life Levi can't marry Sarah because Sarah's kook is Zekuka to Shimon, forget about all of them. I mean, again, it could be that's right and I'm wrong, but at least in the Mahalach that we're going with now, it would seem to me that the way we're defining it, it's irrelevant. You know, the fact that she falls even to Shimon, that's relevant to Shimon, but that has no bearing to Levi because we don't have an appeal of Yibum to Levi. And now Rabbi Shimon in Rav Oshi's Femeret does his magic. What's his magic? That Shimon dies, and now we can create an appeal for Yibum of this woman through Shimon. All we needed was an appeal for Yibum to remove the error of Ashes Reuben. We have now an appeal for Yibum, not in the normal way of the appeal for Yibum that Reuven dies and Shimon is the field for you, Shimon. That's not going to help us with Levi. But what happens now is that there's a field for even from Shimon. And that's where the principle of Zika Kiknusa Davi comes to the fore. Let's just see if we have it. There are three situations, right? Situation number one is that Shimon is not miyabim and he's still alive and well. Situation number two is where Shimon is miyabim her, and that for sure could create an appeal for even when Shimon dies. Okay. Now again, Levi, before Shimon dies, in case number two, where Shimon was miyabim, Levi cannot have a relationship with Sarah because she's an Ashes Eve. So I don't even have to rack my brains up. Okay, Shimon dies, now it's in the field for you. Okay? And the chiddush of Rabbi Shimon is that you don't even need Shimon's Yevamot in order to create a field for you. Even the Zika would create a field for you. Okay, now Shimon dies without Yibum. See what happens then. Shimon dies without Yibum. So what creates the nefila for Yibum? That's the Zika Kiknusa. So Zika Kiknusa, if I'm not mistaken, is irrelevant during the lifetime of Shimon. It only becomes relevant after Shimon dies. Did I make a mistake there?
No. I mean,
there are a lot of factors here. So
it's somewhat relevant while he's alive, and they have this marriage relationship.
But what is the implication?
That she can't go anywhere else.
Oh, right. But I'm saying vis-a-vis Levi.
No.
Vis-a-vis Levi,
he's still Shalom Hayam.
Right. The original erva of Ashes Ach, insofar as there's an absence of Nefila for Yibum to Levi, is still alive and kicking. It's active. So I don't even have to go down the path of Zika Kiknusa Dami. But when does Zika Kiknusa Dami become relevant? That's when Shimon dies. Then with his death, she falls. Even if he's not Miyabin, she falls for Yibum from Shimon. So Jeff, who's now in the Golan until the end of this week, meaning we won't see till Sunday. So Jeff has a research paper, photocopy, that was written by a rabbi whose name escapes me for a second. I may have it here in my briefcase. It was published in Jewish Action of the OU, as to whether or not the Yavam, after Yibum, should call the baby Al Shem Achiv Shemes. The Torah seems to indicate that if you take the Torah literally, but whether or not the Torah means it literally or not. So again, I didn't read the article yet. I just haven't got to say it. But I'm just thinking out loud that if in this scenario Shimon dies without being Miyabeh Ashes Reuben, and now with Shimon's death, sorrowful Yibum to Levi, Levi will call the baby, if you're Shimon, not Reuben again. Because as far as Reuben is concerned, there was no nefila to Yibum. So had Shimon been Miyabim Sarah, and then something. Right. Had Shimon been Miyabim Sarah and there was a baby born, that baby would be called Reuben. If Shimon dies without being Miyabim, no, if Shimon dies after Yibum, for sure, Levi would call the baby of Sarah Shimon. But now we're saying an additional chiddush that even if Shimon was not Miyabim Sarah, with his death, Levi would call the baby Shimon. Isn't that weird? Shimon did nothing except for die. I'm saying. But the answer is Chalutza Kiknusa Dam, is Zika Kiknusa Dam, and therefore she falls for even from Shimon. like really weird when you think of it. Because Shimon is a,
Right.
I have nothing against him personally. I don't want you to think that I'm an anti-Shimon guy, but when you think about it, Shimon did nothing. He sat on the sidelines, and then Nebuchadnezzar started. And now Sarah falls for Yibum. Sarah was married to Reuben, never married to Shimon, but yet she was married to Shimon through Zika, and he did nothing to consummate the marriage. And now the baby is called Shimon. Look at it from Sarah's perspective. Like Sarah comes to the bridge, right, of her baby. I mean, she's been waiting for this baby for a long time. She was married to Reuven, no baby. Shimon refused to be Mi'avimah, no baby. Now she gets married to Levi, and who gets to? She lived with Reuven for 25 years, and the baby's going to be called on the name of Shimon? That's not fair.
Well, Shimon was in Antarctica.
Huh.
Couldn't do anything, and he died when he was there, so it wasn't his fault.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not going to ask you what happened if Shimon committed suicide. Okay, I'm not going to take myself. I'm not going to ask you. That's too gory, That's it.
He's waiting a while for Levi to. Sure.
Yeah, but just imagine the situation. She's begging Shimon to be Miyabim, and Shimon keeps refusing. And then finally he dies. And now the baby is going to be called not Reuven, but Shimon. Okay, that's more of an emotional approach to the Gemara. Okay. So now the Gemara asks the following kasha. Bishlema Yibem Fi Achakach Nolad. Oh. So now we're going to analyze Rav Shimon from the perspective of Rav Oshia. That was our subject matter for today, correct? Our theme for today. Now, Levi was born before Shimon consummated the Yibum. After Levi is born, Shimon consummates the Yibum. Okay, that doesn't have to. That doesn't have to really disturb us. Let's see why the Gemara is born. Is Bishlema Yibem the Achakach Nolad Ki Ashkebet Tera Ashkef? Fine. Ella Nolad the Achakach Yibem my timer. So we said that Shimon dies. We're talking about a case where Shimon died, no? I mean, if Shimon is alive, she's an Ashizish, so there's nothing to talk about. That would be a moot question. Obviously, Shimon died, so she fell for Yibum from Shimon. Well, what's the Gemara bothered? We've done such a good job in working out the mechanics of Rav Shimon that we don't understand the Gemara's kash.
So aren't they concerned because when Levi was first born, Sarah was not so because Shimon and
so you mean the Gemara's going back to this business of a status begufa. That's how we explain the Tanna Kama, that she becomes a guf chefza the iser of Erev. Again, what is that Erev? Because she was married to him. So the Gemara doesn't know yet, and I don't know if the Gemara is going to present this, that Shimon's Yibum completely removed, because we're assuming that it's Begufa. Once it's Begufa, you can't remove that Erev. So it's really interesting when you think about it, because the Erva of Eishesach is unique in the fact that where there's a mitzvah of Yibum, Eishesach doesn't apply. But if you have two different brothers, and vis-a-vis one brother, the same woman is an Eishesach with one brother without a mitzvah of Yibum, and vis-a-vis the other brother, she's an Eishesach with Yibum, the mitzvah of Yibum does not remove the abstract entity of the Erev of Eishes Ach for the entire world. It only removes the Eishes Ach of this particular brother who died and without children. But as far as the other brother is concerned, since it was never a nefila for Yibum, that can't be matir the Erev of Eishes Ach. But if but it's a little bit strange because the Gemara has no problem, Bichlema, in the case of Yibem v'Achkach Noah, that's fine. But wait a second, what happened to the Eishes Ach of Reuven? Where did that disappear?
But see, when
So you're going to tell me the field for Yibum?
right, but when Levi's born, all he sees is sorrows with Shimon.
Yeah, but still, what happened to the concept of Gufa that we're saying? Once you're an Erva, you're an Erva. So again, as far as her marriage to Shimon after Shimon's Biyabim, I understand that's going to create an afil for Yibum. But how is that going to impact on her relationship to Reuven, meaning relationship to Sarah through Reuven as an Eishesach of Reuven?
Marriage to Shimon.
But so why can't that happen after Levi is born? Why is the Gemara so stuck? If Levi hasn't been born yet, then I understand how the marriage to Shimon could remove the status of Horatius Ach of Reuben. But if Levi was already born and then Shimon was Biabin, but then the marriage to Shimon could not remove that. You understand what I'm saying? The way we formulated it, it was a fundamental issue. Once a woman is an erva and she's Eishesach, which never lends itself and will never lend itself to an afil for even full way because he's at lo haybo lama. So that is the erva sticks. But no, Levi was born after Shimon was miyabim. Yeah, but again, Shimon's marriage could create a new nefila for Yibum if and when Shimon dies, but that doesn't create an afil for Yibum vis-a-vis the Eishes Ach status of Eishes Reuven. But just give me 1 minute. I just want to see if he adds anything. He says, Bareke Shabali Olam, Matzo Soki Shehi Adayin Tachas Zikas Reuven. Am I going to understand this? Surah al Yavam, Rei Gabav, Eishes Ach, Yesh Laponim, the Af Im Tischadish Bonafila Mikoch, Achi Shimon, Arei Asur. So I don't know, it sounds like the Masifta is sort of flexing a muscle here. He's invoking a principle. You follow? He's saying that there's a halacha of shas nefila. If nesra olah b'shas nefila, again, there's no nefila to Levi. A little bit confused here. Mitch, can you share, if you don't mind sharing your sister with
That's what he's saying. He said,
Steve?
how come in matter issues slowly?
Wait, what are you reading? Are we on the same page? Show me what you're reading, because I didn't see you. Oh, that's this. Yeah, okay. So I'm trying to read these ones. Okay, so let's go back to that. Okay. You're right, I skipped that, so I should go back. He says, Van Bishlen Yibem Shimon Yachach Nolad Levi Shapi Yesh Lativil Mishum Techi Ashkach Behetera Ashkach Shemotzo Levi Es Sora Eshes Ruve V'Bo Oli Olam Motzo Beheter the Achar Shekfar Mimenu Ichus Ruven. Oh, so that's as far that we said on our own. So this is a happy certification of the way we were going. The Enolea es Ishus Elo es Ishus Shimon. Nimsa, oh, this is what we went on. Nimsa Shemei Olam Nesra Olav Zikas Ruven Sha'achas. Again, he's putting a lot of emphasis here on the Zika. Esra Olav, Zikas Ruven Sha'achas. What does he mean by Zikas Ruven? I mean, her being anticipating evil?
As far as Levi was concerned, then can't get rid of that because all of it is married.
Does Zikas Ruven in this context mean a quasi-marriage relationship to Ruven?
No, the fact that they did not wasn't in the armor. Not the category.
Of Yibum. But what I'm trying to figure out is why are we comfortable? Why is the Isser Eishes Ach, as far as Reuven is concerned, not in existence? He's saying Pakam Imenu.
Because she got married.
Right.
Once
that's
she
a
married soon, that kind of racist.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
Right. Okay. Fine. But look at the next line. He says Nimtza Shemei Olam Lo Nesra Olav Zikas Reuven Shachas. And I'm underlining those words because that's where he's going to contrast it with the next case where Levi was born before the eve of Shimon. So he's constantly focused. So what's this? Again, if there's a magical halacha that Shimon's marriage, removes the Ashes Ruvain status, if Shimon's Yibum, so then I understand. So that's called Pakam Imenu Ishis Ruvain, and that's it. But then, I don't know if this is like an inami or an embellishment. He says, Nimtza Shemei Olam Lo Nesra Olav Zikas Ruvain Sha'achas. Lo Nesra, the word Olav here means Levi. It's referring to Levi. Lo Nesra Olav Zikas Ruvain Sha'achas. It depends upon Zikas Ruvain. Because in the next case, when he's born, there's still a Zika L'Ruven. So let's just see what that means. One thing I can promise you, he's not operating the way we were operating with that halacha begufa, that once she's an error begufa veishasach, she remains forever. He's not operating with that. And for justifiable reasons, because once you operate with that, you really don't understand the Gemara's distinction. So he's operating with a substitute svara, which is zikas Reuven. So what's going on over here? What does he mean by zikas Reuven? Zikas Reuven means that someone has to be up. One second. If he, let's say, since Zikas Reuven that once Zion, if was not miyabim, so what do we have Zikas Reuven. Zikas Reuven. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill, or you identify with my challenge here? I could always say, well, forget about the Masechet. I could interpret this Gemara the way I understand the Gemara. But the only problem is, with my approach, we got stuck against the brick wall. So I have vested interest in trying to find another alternative, which right now, all I have in front of me is the Masechet. So I'd like to rack my brains and figure out what he's saying. The first case of Yibei V'Achkach Nolad is Kvar Poka Mimenu Ishus Ruven. Ela Isha Shimon. Shemei Olam Lo Nesra Lo Zikas Ruven. Not in the case of Nola. So there is an existence of Zikas Ruven. I think he's saying, if this, again, just the mechanics of it, I don't understand the svara of it, but the mechanics of it is, I think he's saying that since Shimon is chayav and yibum, therefore the erva relationship between Levi and Sarah is still alive and well. What generates that erva relationship? It's the fact that Shimon is chayav and yibum. He hasn't done it yet, and Levi is born. So if Levi is born, right? So we said there was no nefila for even to remove vis-a-vis Levi. There was no nefila for even to be mad. Right? But then we said Shimon. Then we said Shimon married her subsequently.
Shimon marries her. We want to say that the relationship of the movie is gone. But the problem is now Levi was born before they got married.
Right.
So you can't get rid of it. But when Levi comes into the world and they're already married, then they remove the Ruvain part of the equation. And he's born into that situation. So the question is, was he born before or after? What if he was in the world for a few hours and they were not married yet? Then he's got this relationship with the inclinations are forever. But if he's born after them, already removed that vicious business. He's born into a situation where he's got a brother Shimon is married. Dies, he's kind of evil.
Would you say, I want to give you two possibilities, A or B, to understand why, if Levi is born before Shimon was V'yaben, the Gemara argues that there should be an erev of Eishes Am. Two possibilities. One is to say because Shimon is alive, and the other is to say because there's no possibility of the feel of the Yibum vis-a-vis Levi, because it's lo haybolom, and therefore we cannot remove the Yisrei Shesam. Is the Gemara's problem based on the fact that Shimon exists here in the picture? Or is the problem because since he's Eino Bolamo, he won't get any feel of the Yibum from Ruvain to Levi, and therefore she remains Eishes Ab? Because he uses terminology Kishiadayin Zikas Motza Oso Kishiadayin Tachas Zikas Ruven. Is he referring to the fact that Shimon is alive? That's what Zikas Ruven means? But I'm saying the fact that she's Kuka Momedes to Shimon, is that what generates the Erev of Eishesach? Well, forget about Shimon. I don't even have to mention the fact that she's Kuka to Shimon. All I have to mention is that there's no matter of Yibum to remove the Yisrei Eishesach. With regard to the case where Shimon married her before Levi was born, that's a whole different story. Then the Ishus that we're dealing with is the Ishus of Shimon, and it wasn't a fear from Shimon when Shimon died. But The problem when Levi was born before Yibum of Shimon is that Shinsi's kuka to Shimon, that's what generates the Erev of Eishes. Or we'll cut that out. See, what I'm trying to argue is that logically we could cut out the Zika of Yibum to Shimon and not even mention the word Zika and just simply say that we have an Ishus that we have to deal with, meaning that she was Eishes Ruvain, and that itself is enough to generate the Erev of Eishes Ach. I don't know, do I have to mention the fact that Shimon is in the picture? I mean, again, if Shimon wasn't in the picture, then there would be nothing to talk about. That would be Eishes Ach Shalohay Bolam. So obviously I need Shimon in the picture. But in the distinction between Meis V'Achach Yibem, Nolad V'Achach Yibem, or Yibem V'Achach Nolad, in that context, do I need the fact that Shimon is a factor here?
It's a factor only because whether he's married to or not.
No, but I'm saying in the case where he hasn't fulfilled Yibum, is it important to mention here in the Gemara's context that the Erev of Eishes Ach is a result of the fact that Shimon is in the picture? That's what he calls Zkuka l'Shimon. And since at the time of the Tefillah, there was no Yibum possible for Levi, therefore the fact that she's Kuka to Shimon, that creates the Erev of Eishes Ach. What do you say, Steve?
But Shimon does do Yibum for eventually.
Right.
So because he does it eventually, that's why it's important to be here.
Right, but somehow he's not able to remove the Erev of Eishes Ach of Ruvain once that Erev is Chal. In the case where he married her through Yibum first, and then Levi was born, so then we have a new situation on the ground in which, the issues of Reuben is history. So now there's issues to Shimon, and Shimon dies, she falls for even to Levi. But in the case where Shimon is alive, that creates a Zika to Shimon, and as a result, there's an Erev of Eishes Ach. I would have been more comfortable leaving out the Zika to Shimon. Shimon's not even a factor in the picture at this point. You want to know why she's an Eishes Ach? Because it's known to feel for Yibum vis-a-vis Levi to remove that Eishes Ach of Ruvain. That's what I would have said, but I think he's saying something totally different.
Well, because as soon as marry Shimon, they create new